It is 8:47 in the morning, and you are sitting in a meeting that does not matter, nodding at words you are not hearing, when your phone buzzes once under the table. It is a payment notification. $4,000 just landed in an account your manager does not know exists, from a client who thinks you work for yourself full-time. Your heart rate spikes. Your manager is still talking. You smile, you nod, you say, "Totally agree," to something you did not listen to, and underneath the table, your hands are cold. This is the moment you understand, for the first time, that you are living two lives, and only one of them is allowed to be seen. 6 months ago, you were nobody special. You clocked in at 9, you answered emails you didn't care about. You sat in traffic thinking about how much of your one life was being spent inside beige walls for someone else's dream. You told yourself it was temporary. Everyone tells themselves that. Most people are still telling themselves that 10 years later. But you didn't stay most people. Stage 1 is the seed, and it is planted in secret. You start small, after hours, in the 15 minutes before you fall asleep, and the 30 minutes before your alarm forces you back into the machine. A freelance project, a side skill nobody at the office knows you have. You tell no one, not your coworkers, not your manager, not even your closest friend at work, because the moment they know, it becomes real to them before it's real to you. And real to them means it can be reported, mocked, or worse, sabotaged. You learn the first rule of the double life early. Silence is armor. The first client pays you $200. It feels like winning a small war. You stare at the number in your banking app the way other people stare at a promotion letter. You did that. Not your job title. You. Stage 2 is discipline, and it is brutal in a way no one warns you about. You are still expected to perform at full capacity during work hours, because a slipping performance review is the fastest way to get noticed for the wrong reasons. So you split yourself. 8 hours of pretending to be fully present for a company that would replace you in a week if it helped their quarterly numbers. Then 2, 3, sometimes 4 more hours after that, building the thing that is actually yours. You stop watching television. You stop scrolling at night. Sleep becomes a resource you ration instead of a right you assume. Your friends start saying you've gotten distant. You let them think what they want, because the truth, that you're building an exit while wearing the mask of loyalty, is not something you're ready to defend yet. There is a specific kind of exhaustion in living 2 schedules inside one day. Your body is in the office. Your mind is already gone, running numbers on a spreadsheet only you can see, calculating how many more months of double life it will take before the escape becomes survivable. Stage 3 is the first real test, and it comes disguised as an ordinary Tuesday. Your manager schedules a quick sync. Those 2 words never mean anything good. You sit down. He slides a laptop toward you, and on the screen is an invoice with your name on it, from a client, for freelance work, sent through a payment platform linked loosely, carelessly, to an account you thought was clean. Your stomach drops through the floor. He asks if this is a conflict of interest. He asks if you have another job. Every second of silence is a decision. Lie and risk being caught in something worse later. Deflect and buy time you may not get again. You choose the second, carefully, calmly, telling him it's a small, personal project, nothing that touches company time or company clients. Technically true, legally defensible, morally gray enough to keep you both in the room instead of him walking you out of it. He lets it go, this time. But something shifts in you that day. The fear of being caught stops being abstract. It has a face now, a conference room, a laptop screen. And instead of shrinking you, it sharpens you. You go home that night and you don't cry, you don't panic, you build. You separate your systems more carefully. Different bank, different devices, different hours, moved earlier, moved quieter, moved smarter. You are no longer an amateur playing at a second life. You are becoming someone who knows how to run one. Stage 4 is momentum. And momentum is intoxicating in a way nothing at the office ever was. The side income crosses $1,000 a month, then 3, then 5. You do the math obsessively, the way people count calories or steps. except you're counting freedom in dollar amounts. $5,000 a month is rent covered. $8,000 is rent and savings. $12,000 is the number that starts to feel like it might actually replace the paycheck you've depended on since you were 22 years old. You start saying no to things at work you would have said yes to a year ago. Not loudly, not in a way that draws attention, just quietly protecting your energy because you know now exactly where it's needed most, and it isn't in that building. Your coworkers start to notice something different about you, even if they can't name it. You seem calmer in meetings that used to stress you out. You seem less afraid of your manager's opinion. Power does that. Even secret power, even power no one else can see yet, changes how you carry yourself, because you know something they don't. You have a way out, and they don't. Stage 5 is the temptation to move too fast, and this is where most people in your position destroy everything they've built. The side income is strong enough now that quitting feels not just possible, but urgent. Every morning in that office starts to feel like theft. Theft of your time, theft of your best hours, theft of a life you can already see clearly enough to touch. You almost do it. You have the resignation email drafted in your notes app for 3 weeks. Your finger hovers over send more than once. But you've learned enough by now to know that impulsive freedom is just a different kind of trap. You force yourself to build a runway instead of a leap. 6 months of expenses saved, untouched, sacred. A second and third client secured, so the entire operation doesn't collapse if one relationship ends. A legal structure set up quietly, so what was once a side hustle starts to look, on paper, like a real business, because it is one. This stage tests your identity more than any other. You start to feel like a fraud in both directions. Not enough of an employee to feel safe at your job anymore, not enough of an entrepreneur to feel legitimate outside it. You are standing on a bridge between two versions of yourself, and the bridge is on fire behind you and unfinished ahead of you. Stage 6 is the quiet goodbye, the part almost no one sees coming because you don't announce it, you engineer it. You stop mentally investing in office politics. You stop volunteering for projects that only pay off a year from now, a year you already know you won't be there for. You start training, without saying so, the version of yourself your team will need after you're gone. Because burning the bridge on the way out isn't power, it's carelessness. And carelessness is what gets people's secret lives exposed before they're ready. You give your notice on a Thursday. 2 weeks, professional, calm, no big speech, no dramatic reveal of the business you've been building under everyone's nose for the better part of a year. Your manager is surprised. A few coworkers ask what you're going to do next, and you give them a version of the truth small enough to be safe and honest enough to not feel like a lie. Going out on my own for a while. That's all they need. That's all they get. Stage 7 is the first Monday with no office to walk into, and it is the strangest morning of your life. No badge, no commute, no meeting you have to pretend to care about. Just you, your laptop, your clients, and a silence so total it feels almost violent after years of noise you didn't choose. You expect relief. What you feel instead, for the first few weeks, is a kind of quiet terror. There is no manager to blame anymore if something goes wrong. There is no company salary landing automatically every 2 weeks, whether you performed well or badly that day. Every dollar now has your fingerprints on it, earned or lost, and the weight of that responsibility sits differently in your chest than any performance review ever did. This is the part no cinematic story about quitting your job usually shows you. The freedom is real, but so is the fear that comes with owning every outcome, good and bad, alone. Stage 8 is rebuilding your identity from the ground up. For years, when people asked what you did, you gave them a job title that belonged to a company, not to you. Now when they ask, you have to answer with something that is entirely yours, something you built in secret, in stolen hours, in the space between exhaustion and obsession. Saying it out loud for the first time, I run my own business, feels more exposing than the payment notification that started all of this. You start to notice how differently people treat you at each level of this journey. When you were quietly hustling on the side, people who knew treated it like a hobby, something cute, something you'd probably give up. When the income started matching your salary, The tone shifted to curiosity, sometimes envy. When you finally left, some people who once seemed supportive turned distant, almost resentful, as if your escape reminded them too clearly of the cage they were still standing in. And a few people, the ones who mattered, leaned in closer, asking not, "Why did you do this?" but, "How did you do this?" That's the real hierarchy hidden inside the 9 to 5. It was never about job titles or corner offices. It was about who was still asleep inside the system and who had quietly, carefully, dangerously woken up. By the final stage, the version of you sitting in that meeting 6 months ago, hiding a phone buzzing under the table, barely recognizable to who you've become. You've traded the comfort of a guaranteed paycheck for the weight of full ownership. You've traded the safety of a manager's approval for the harder, colder judgment of the market itself. You've traded a predictable ceiling for an uncertain, uncapped sky. You still remember the fear in that conference room, the laptop screen with your name on an invoice you thought was hidden. You remember thinking that moment might end everything. Instead, it was the moment that proved you could survive discovery, survive risk, survive the cost of choosing yourself. Some nights you still wonder if you left too early, or not early enough. You wonder what would have happened if your manager had pushed harder that day, if the fear had won instead of the plan. You wonder how many people are sitting in that same meeting right now, phone buzzing quietly under the table, calculating the same silent math you once did. So here's the only question that matters now, the one you can't fully answer even after living every stage of it yourself. If you were still in that room today, phone buzzing under the table with proof of the life you're building in secret, would you have the discipline to wait for your moment? Or would you already be reaching for send?